One guy don't bust out to. He says section 137D for Nigeria Constitution. He say APC and Tinubun lawyers doesn't want to see it at all. He say if they see a conversion will hold them. He said they don't want to see him. Before I leave and now make una see about myself, the way when the guy explain am, make una remember say we have national actor on this platform. Na be laba brum laba. Don't forget to like this page, comment, share it so that Facebook will recommend it to other people to see too. Na be this not all.
Section 137D, Section 137D. That is the section that Tinubun or APC or any of their lawyers don't want to hear right now because it's their albatross. They don't want to hear it. But it's the section that is music to my ears, music to the ears of obedience, music to the ears of patriotic Nigerians out there, music that gives hope that indeed the mandate of the people will be retrieved from the APC and given back to the Labour Party, to Peter Obi, so that the new Nigeria that we know and believe is possible will become real. Section 137D. APC doesn't want to hear it. Tinubun doesn't want to hear it. Neither do their lawyers. But we must hear it. They no one hear it, but they must hear it. What does Section 137 really say? We'll read it word for word. It's written in plain English. So if you read, you will understand it. If you are like, if you have attended school, you have attended even only primary school, you don't even have any secondary school experience, don't worry. So far as you can read and write, you will understand what Section 137 subsection D says about who is qualified to be president of Nigeria. It's talking about disqualifications. In fact, Section 137 has 10 subsections, 10 criteria that defines who is qualified to be president of Nigeria. Unfortunately, the APC tries to hide behind subsection E. We'll read about that subsection. But what finishes them, what puts the final nail on the coffin for them, is subsection D. So we'll start with subsection D, and then we'll read subsection E, and then we'll interpret it as laymen, so that there will be no confusion. No confusion. Now, chapter 6, part 1, section 137 of the Constitution of Nigeria, which handles disqualification, reads and I say, a person shall not be qualified for election to the office of president if, he mentions A, he takes the citizenship of another country, B, he has been elected to the office of president for 2 terms before, C, he is adjudged to be a lunatic or declared to be of unsound mind. In fact, this subsection C makes it compulsory for any person who is running for president to be checked. Yes, for mental health. Yeah, but we'll come to that another day. D, which is the part that interests me. Remember, a person shall not be qualified for election to the office of president if D, he is under a sentence of death imposed by any competent court of law or tribunal in Nigeria, or a sentence of imprisonment or fine for any offense involving dishonesty or fraud by whatever name called, or for any offense imposed on him by any court or tribunal, or substituted by any competent authority for any other sentence imposed on him by such a court or tribunal. Section 137, subsection 1D. That's the part they don't want to hear. I just read it now. That section 137, subsection 1D has 2 components. The first component is if he is under a sentence of death imposed on him by any competent court of law or tribunal in Nigeria, that's one. Or if he's under a sentence of imprisonment or fine for any offense involving dishonesty or fraud by whatever name called, or for any offense imposed on him by any court or tribunal, or substituted by a competent authority for any sentence, any other sentence imposed on him by such a court or tribunal. These are the 2 components of section 137, subsection 1D. 2 parts. The sentence of death, which must be imposed by a court in Nigeria, or a sentence of fine or imprisonment, which can be imposed by any competent court in any part of the world. By that second part of subsection 1D of section 137, it simply means that you cannot commit robbery and be convicted of robbery in America and then come to Nigeria and say you want to become president. You cannot be convicted of rape in United Arab Emirates and then come to Nigeria and say you want to be president. You cannot be convicted of stealing in the United Kingdom and then you come to Nigeria and say you want to be president. That is what the second part of that subsection 1D of section 137 says. So the argument that Tinubun and his lawyers are making that the fine, the sentence of fine that was imposed on Tinubun in America does not apply in Nigeria is false. Because it will only be correct if it had been a sentence of death that was imposed on Tinubun. Then you would have said, oh, that sentence of death was imposed in America, so it does not apply in Nigeria. But that is not the sentence that is of interest to Nigerians. And to this case, the sentence that is of interest is the sentence of fine. And from the second part of subsection 1D of section 137 of the Constitution of Nigeria that I just read, the second part says that if the person has come under a sentence of imprisonment or a sentence of fine for any offense involving dishonesty or fraud by whatever name called, or for any other offense imposed on him by any court or tribunal, or substituted by a competent authority for any other sentence imposed on him by such a court or tribunal. Any court, underline. Any court. Now we have a court in America that sentenced Tinubu to a fine of $460,000 US, which he forfeited. For what? Is it for Gary? Is it for Ewa? No. He did not forfeit it for Gary. He did not forfeit it for Ewa. He did not forfeit it for Cassava. What did he forfeit it for? He forfeited it because that money was represented proceeds of narcotics trafficking. That money represented proceeds of narcotics trafficking. That was why he forfeited that $460,000 US. Now, Tinubu lawyer says he surrendered it. He did not surrender it. The court ordered that the money be forfeited. And why was it forfeited? Because the court had given a previous order for the money to be frozen, for the account to be frozen, for the money to be seized. Why was the money seized before? Why did the court issue a seizure order to freeze those accounts belonging to Tinubu? Because the monies were being withdrawn and being used to buy land in order to cover the tracks for these drug cartels and their members. So it was not that he voluntarily surrendered. No, the money was first of all seized. This investigation took well over 6 years. And after 6 years, the investigating officer, Kevin Moss, swore an affidavit and detailed the findings of his investigation. And then filed a complaint of forfeiture and slammed 2 charges against Bola Tinubu. Charge 1 was 18 US Code 1956, which bordered on money laundering, and 18 US Code 1957, which bordered on making money through illegal means. And after being slammed with those 2 charges, when he discovered the hanky-panky of money being withdrawn and all that, he had to apply for the accounts to be frozen, for the money to be seized. So when the case was dispensed of by way of plea bargain, when Tinubu's brother came to beg, because Tinubu was in Nigeria at the time, and he used his brother Kola Tinubu and his mother, Magaji, something. And those were claiming that some of the monies were theirs. But the case was proven, and then the judge ruled based on the punishment that is prescribed by the law that was broken. You know, he was slammed with 2 charges. Each charge has its prescribed punishment by law. 18 US Code 1956, the prescribed punishment is sentence or fine of not more than $500,000 US, or sentence of imprisonment of not more than 20 years, or both. Not more than $500,000 US means that it could be $460,000 US, it could be $300,000 US, it could be $200,000 US, it could be $490,000 US, it could be exactly $500,000 US, but not more than $500,000 US. And the person with the prerogative to decide the exact amount of fine is the judge. And the judge ruled by the court order, the final forfeiture order, ruled that $460,000 US must be forfeited because the money was already in government account, and anything in excess of it will be released. Because a judge can only give punishment that is prescribed for the offense. The judge could not have said, oh, even though we have found you guilty, let's seize all the money in the account. No, that's not what the law said. The law says that the fine for being involved in money laundering and being in possession of money that is proceeds of drugs trafficking, the punishment shall be a fine of not more than $500,000 US. Now, they say that it was not Tinubu that was charged. It was his account. Now, listen. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, without conceding, that truly it was the account that was sued and not Tinubu. The charge was for what? Was for money laundering. For money laundering to happen, somebody must put money into the account, and somebody must take money out of the account. Yes? So, will the account launder money by itself? Somebody has to use the account to launder money. And only the person in whose name the account was opened, or who has access to the account, if it's a corporate account, can use the account to launder money. So when they say, come to court and show reason why we should not seize the whole money, was it the account that developed 2 legs and went to court? Is it not the representative, the lawyers for Tinubu that went to court? So, there was a sentence of fine of $460,000 US on Tinubu, because he's the owner of the account, is the one that was guilty of using that account for money laundering activities for and receiving proceeds of drugs trafficking. So you cannot separate Tinubu from it, like the court did not separate him. And the sentence was a punishment, because that was the punishment prescribed for violating that code, violating that law, the sentence of fine. So having been sentenced to a fine in US for something worse than just dishonesty, for something worse than just fraud, this is a crime, engaging in drugs trafficking. Having been sentenced to a fine of $460,000 US for the crime of being in possession of monies that are proceeds of drug trafficking, heroin trafficking. Applying that to the second part of subsection 1D of section 137 of the Nigerian Constitution. Magana Yakarifa. Orotisorai. Case has solved itself. Otanareno. Chikena. Finished. Guilty as charged. Disqualification. Tinubu is not qualified. It is simple and clear as day. Tinubu is not qualified. End of discussion. Now, the next item is that they were talking about the US consulate. The US consulate. That the US consulate cleared Tinubu. That is another lie. We'll deal with that in another video, so that the video does not get too long. These videos get too long very quickly. I don't know why. But please, I hope you are still watching. Before you leave, share this video. Let's create awareness. People need to know. People need to know. Nigerians need to know